excited you're here, Ian. It's just wonderful. I'm just so happy that you're here and you're going to share your knowledge with us today. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being here.
Great.
So, yeah,
thank you,
so
Angi. I really appreciate it. I know we've been looking forward to this for a while, so I'm very glad that we were able to make it work.
Yeah. So let me introduce you to anybody who's listening. So I've known Ian now for a couple of years, and Ian specialises in legalities. He's an attorney who empowers and educates coaches and healers and transformational leaders, really, people that are working, like you said before, in heart-centered businesses to protect themselves from the law, because there is so many pitfalls that people can face. And I know from my little bit of law experience when I did it at uni that not knowing the law is not an excuse. So thank you so much. So how did you get here? Like, why are you doing what you're doing?
So it turns out that helping kind of this heart-centered industry of coaches and healers and transformational leaders, light workers, whatever label you want to use for it, is a whole legal specialty unto its own. And I've always had a heart for service in the law. I went to a law school that was very heart-centered and service-oriented, so it was a great place for me to go. I worked in government for many years. I did a number of subjects, taxes and finance and business entities and other stuff. But even then, it was a very service-oriented thing. I was in the government really trying to help the state that I lived in and, make sure that teachers and firefighters got paid and everything. And then, now this is how I serve. And I got into this specialty when I met my beautiful wife, Heather, 5 years ago. Heather, she's, I just think she's the greatest thing ever. And she's my soulmate, and she's a licensed therapist and a life coach. And so when we got together, marrying an attorney, she thought, well, I'll have my attorney husband look things over. And I looked over her stuff and realized that some of the documents people had gotten for her probably could be shored up and done a little better, and her business could be organized a little better. And so we kind of fixed things up that way. And in researching it, I realized that there's a whole specialty here. I knew that there are attorneys who specialize in helping licensed therapists and psychologists, and that is something I now do too. But it turns out this whole area of you don't have to have a professional license to help people. You can be a coach and a healer, a light worker, whatever it might be, and still help a lot of people with your gifts and talents. But there is a whole dangerous legal landscape out there that's very detailed and very deep. And so there's a whole legal specialty there. And so that's when I became specialized in that. And people with attorneys, they forget that we're like doctors and that you want an attorney with the right specialty. With a doctor, that they go to school for years and years to get very good at their specialty. And so that's why you don't have your heart surgeon doing your brain surgery, and you don't have your brain surgery doing work on your feet. You make sure you go to the right doctor for the right problem. Same thing for an attorney. You don't want a divorce lawyer writing your contracts, and you don't want a contract lawyer working on your divorce. You need to have the right people who work on the right subjects. And so that's my specialty now.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think the thing too is that there are so many pitfalls, aren't there, that people can get caught with if they don't understand or protect themselves properly.
And there are very few attorneys out there doing this specialty. Unfortunately, it's a fast growing industry, so it needs more lawyers. I kind of feel like a one-man army sometimes, because there aren't that many lawyers doing what I do. I'm starting to meet a few more now, fortunately. But I'm still the only one I know who does real proactive, empowering education for folks. I try to break the mold of what it means to be a lawyer. So a lot of lawyers will charge you a huge hourly rate, and hey, I do that sometimes too, to build you like a shiny new legal Cadillac. But they don't teach you how to drive it. And so you get this beautiful new legal vehicle and you go out and crash it because you haven't learned how to drive. You haven't learned the rules of the road. You haven't learned what all the signposts mean or what directions to use. So you go crash it, and then you have to come back to the lawyer to build you another shiny new legal Cadillac. Oh, and you have to pay them to defend you in a lawsuit against the person you wrecked it against, right? That's the legal business, which is great for the lawyer's pocketbook, but not so great for the client. So I'm trying to teach people how to build their own shiny new legal Cadillac and how to drive it for themselves and how it all works. And then they can make empowered choices. Then if you still want an attorney to help you out, you can do that. But now you know what questions to ask. You know if they're in the right specialty. You don't just have to make a choice out of necessity and blind trust. You have your own power and ability, and you can stand in that power. So to me, that's a big part of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, which is what you do, which is empowering people so that they've got the knowledge and the education to move forward. So yeah. So thank you for coming on today. And you were going to talk to us a little bit about legal armor. So I would love to know, what exactly do you mean about legal armor and what layers we need to put on, you know?
Definitely. So, yeah. No, and this is an analogy that I've always liked. So we've read history of like the medieval times and the medieval knights on the battlefield, the knight in shining armor, and they were jousting and they got their swords and their horses and everything. Well, it sounds very glorious, but I'm sure if you were an actual medieval knight, it was a dirty, sweaty, bloody, ugly business. And there's a reason that they layered up in armor, in all kinds of armor layers, because they were going out into danger. Their life could be ended at any moment, right? And they knew that if you just had one layer of armor on, that any clever opponent can pierce one layer of armor. So they didn't go out there with one layer on. They had multiple layers on. So they had a leather tunic underneath covering everything. And they had armor around their calves and their shoes, right? And they had even armor on their horses. And then over the leather, they had chainmail. And then over the chainmail, they had heavy plate armor. And then after that, they had a shield, right? All these layers of armor. It was all very heavy, but it was all there for a reason.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's a wonder they could walk with all that on, like, seriously.
Yeah, no, they were tough folks, those guys, pretty tough folks in good shape for sure, because they were wearing 100 pounds of armor on. And they had to have those one layer or two layers. You're going to get dead. You needed all these layers so that they overlapped and they worked together in different ways. And your legal armor is like that. So you need the multiple layers of legal armor, because any one layer of legal armor is easy to pierce. A clever attorney out there who's representing someone else or a government coming after you, they can pierce one layer of legal armor, no problem. They can probably even pierce 2 layers of legal armor. But this is why you try to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different layers of overlapping legal armor on you, because you're walking out onto a dangerous landscape, and it only takes one thing to go wrong. You step on one legal landmine, you get one pissed off opponent out there, and your whole business can be over. And for a lot of us in this heart-centered industry especially, our business is not just about making money. It's one thing if, you're making money through something that you're like, whatever, I could care less about it. It's just a money-making opportunity. And if that goes south, you're like, I'll find another one. There's always more ways to make money. But for coaches and healers, transformational leaders, other people who really serve from the heart, when you lose your business, you haven't just lost the income. You've lost your passion. You've lost your purpose. Yeah. It's awful. It's really heartbreaking. So I've been trying to teach folks to put on these multiple layers of legal armor.
Wow. So you're going to let us know what some of these layers might be?
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about that. And it's not just about the layer too, it's also about knowing how to use it. So, because again, like a medieval knight with a shield, the shield is one layer of armor. But if he just waved it around up in the air, it doesn't do any good. You have to know how to use it too. And so the first layer of legal armor that I think of, that a lot of people think of, is your business entity. And again, you got to know how to use it. It's like a shield. You have to hold it in the proper place. Because I've had clients come to me and say, I set up my business entity. And when I talk about that, so you have clients all over the place, Angi. So there might be different terminology. In the United States where I am, the 2 main types of entities people use are corporations and limited liability companies, which are both business entities in that they are separate legal persons. So they are not you. They're separate and distinct legal persons from you. In other areas of the world, they might use the term limited company or limited or different terms. They might say corporation or something like it. There's going to be different terms. But basically, wherever you are, there's going to be some kind of legal entity where you have to go to the government and you register it and form it. And that becomes like a new legal person. Yeah. And because it's a new legal person, it's like a shield that's set up in front of you that protects all your personal stuff from all the bad things that can go on outside. Now, that shield is only as good as you use it. If you set up the business entity, you go to the government's website, you register it, and you pay their annual fee, and then you do nothing, then you're like the medieval knight who has a shield that's just hanging by their side.
Yes.
You have to actually treat it like a separate legal person. It needs its own bank account. It needs a special agreement and bylaws set up to set up the proper rules. You have to, if you are engaging in business with your entity, which you are, you need to have agreements between you and the entity, just like you would have agreements between you and another person. If that entity has its own bank account, that cannot be your personal piggy bank. You would not go to your business partner and raid their bank account for your own personal money. At least I hope you wouldn't, right? But same thing with your business entity. Treat it like another legal person. Use it properly. So that way you're like holding the shield up in front of you. So that's kind of the first big layer of armor.
Okay.
So behind that, another layer of armor would be insurance. And folks are generally pretty familiar with insurance. You know, insurance is a way of shifting risk from yourself onto someone else. Now, they don't do that for free. That's why you pay them a monthly premium, right? They don't just take the risk on out of the kindness of their hearts. They take the risk on for money, okay? So get some kind of insurance with an affordable monthly premium. And now, again, here, know how to use that insurance. You know, here's a very common question I get. Is to me, it's always a little bit strange, but I have to step back and say it's okay. You know, you don't know what you don't know. Not everybody's an expert, and that's fine. But the question I often get, people say, "Hey, Ian, what does my insurance cover?" And my answer is always the same. Yes. I don't know. It's not my insurance policy. How do I know what it covers? I haven't read it.
Yeah.
So read your policy.
Sorry, just are you talking about like people having insurance for limited liability? You know, so that if there's an accident, for example, if someone hurts and falls over a wire in your office or something, or professional indemnity maybe. The sorts of things that you're talking about.
Yeah, those are the different kinds of things I'm talking about. In some places it's called professional indemnity, in other places it's called malpractice. Some places you could have an umbrella insurance, where they call it that because it's like an umbrella that just covers you from all the downpours of liability that could fall on you.
Yes.
There's something errors and omissions insurance, which a lot of people get errors and omissions insurance, or they also call it E&O insurance because it's cheap. And they think, oh, now I'm covered for a cheap rate, but they haven't actually read the policy. And often that E&O policy, all it will cover is some kind of mistake in your contract. So you didn't give someone a refund when they were supposed to. Well, then just give them the refund. Or you promised them 5 modules in your program and only gave them 4. And so it covered, well, just give them the 5th module then. You know, so that to me, that kind of policy is not always the most useful, and it's not going to cover like actual harm to your clients. You want something that's going to cover harm to your clients. And you think, well, why? I don't harm my clients. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You know how I know that? Because you're a human being and your clients are human beings. So you harm them sooner or later. Is there any relationship in your life where you have literally never, ever hurt that person's feelings? Ever? I mean, if you think about it, no, you know, we hurt each other's feelings because we're human beings and we don't mean to, and it's an accident, and that's okay. But when you're dealing with clients who could have mental triggers, mental traumas that you're not aware of, it can be very easy to hurt someone's feelings by accident. And most of the time, the client will recognize it was an accident, and they'll say, they didn't mean to. They didn't know that I'm sensitive that way. No big deal. And a few hours later, everything's fine. But if you hurt someone's feelings and they have some kind of deep-seated trauma that you don't know about, or maybe they don't know about, it could cause some real lasting damage. And you hope that doesn't happen, but sooner or later it will, because again, we're humans and they're humans, and this stuff happens. So you want something that covers harm to your clients. And that's what people forget about a lot, because they always think, but I don't harm my clients. Well, I'm sure you don't, not on purpose. Okay, I'm sure you're not out there harming your clients on purpose. I get that, but you will by accident sooner or later. It's just the law of averages. It's going to happen. Yes. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I think a lot of in Australia, we need to have, if you do, and you're going to any like on-site places, they all require insurance. You have, like, now it's a big thing to actually have forms of insurance before you're allowed to even book venues to run workshops and classes or anything like that these days. And same as, you know, hiring consultation rooms or anything like that, you need to have insurance. So that's definitely something that's on the rise.
Yeah, that's becoming required more and more. Just like more and more, it's required that you have car insurance, right? And it's like thinking, well, I don't need car insurance because I'm not going to get in a wreck. Well, do you know that really?
Yeah, that's it.
You don't know that, you know. So again, that sort of stuff where you're renting out meeting space and venues and stuff. Yeah, more and more, a lot of them are requiring insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. And little accidents can happen easy. So
yeah, all the time, you know, and they don't, the venue. So when you go to a hotel, you're going to have a big live event. You're going to have 200 people show up. So you're renting out a big hotel conference room, right?
Yep.
And the hotel says you need insurance to do that. You don't respond to them by saying, why? I'm not going to hurt anybody. What do I need insurance for? I'm not going to hurt anybody there. Well, they don't think you're going to hurt anybody on purpose. That's not the point.
No,
but someone could trip and fall or get hurt.
well,
you know?
exactly. I had a case actually when I was running an event where people were helping me at the end of it to put tables down, and one of the tables was really, really heavy, and it actually hit the woman's toe, and we were lucky that it didn't break. But I mean, that could have been a situation where I would have needed to have used my insurance to help her with a broken toe, and it was just because she the table hit her foot. So yeah.
Well, absolutely. And to think, you know, the premium for that insurance might have been really cheap. I've seen live event insurance for as cheap as like $50 for a one-time payment.
Yeah.
And think that $50, the peace of mind you get knowing that you don't have to pay out a $50,000 lawsuit or medical bill.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, to me, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely.
No-brainer. Yeah.
Wow.
So, you know, that kind of brings me to another layer of legal armor. And this one sounds strange to people because they don't think of it as a legal issue. Just be nice to people. You know, it's nice to be nice.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. It doesn't cost you anything to be nice. The premiums are free and it's easy to do. Just be nice to people. And if you're nice to people, you are so much less likely to get into a legal dispute of some kind. You know, I've had folks come to me and, you know, they're like, I'm getting sued and da-da-da. And when I dig deep into it, I'm like, well, you were a jerk to the client. Of course they're suing you. You know, if you were just nice, if you just sat down and had a conversation with them and worked it out, you would have been fine. And yeah, maybe you would have had to paid out $100 refund you didn't want to pay out. Well, but now you're paying me $500 an hour to defend you in a lawsuit. Which would you rather have there?
Yeah.
Just be nice to people.
Yes.
And that really is that's a legal layer of armor, because folks who are nice don't get sued very much. People who are jerks and treat people bad, they get sued all the time. So don't forget about that one. And I'm always stressing that one, and folks are always surprised, but just be nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, and I know that too. I know when we had our retail store, we used to have a computing retail store, and you know, I could tell my reaction if someone came in and needed like something wasn't working properly. And they came in and were saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, but you know, we bought this and it's not working and like blah, blah, blah. You'd bend over backwards to help them. But if someone came in and was slamming their hands on the desk and going, this doesn't work, the reaction that I would have physically would be more like I'd be going, woof, you know, and you'd not want to help them as much because of exactly that. Like you could tell, you know, your reaction is very different than how people.
The energy is reciprocated. And that happened when I was in the government. When I was in the government, I used to enforce a bunch of different kinds of laws on taxes and finance, and I would audit and examine big businesses. And sometimes I audited people, and they just treated me like assholes. You know, they lied to me. They gave me forged documents. They stuck me in a tiny room with the heater turned up to 100 degrees just to try and make me miserable. They called me names. They insulted me. Well, guess what? Guess how their audit ended? Not so well for them.
No, I can imagine. Exactly.
My incentive at that point was to try and find as many things wrong as I could.
Yes.
You know, now on the other hand, if they invited me in, some places would invite me in and they'd say, welcome. Hi, my name's so-and-so. Let's get to know each other. Here's a nice room. Here's the paperwork you need. What can I get for you? Do you want a cup of coffee? Look at here. I'm open and transparent because I have nothing to hide. Maybe I made some mistakes. Maybe I didn't, but we'll figure it out and we'll get through this together. Went a whole lot better for those folks.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's it. It's such a difference. So we've got a couple of people here that are actually on live with us.
Okay.
And, yeah, commenting and saying hi. So yeah. So hello, Karen, and hi, Jason. So it's lovely that you're here sharing with us today. So yeah, if you have any questions, pop them up too so that Ian can answer them. I do actually have another question that I need to ask you that someone has asked me later.
Please, yeah.
After you talk about your armor, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. So another layer of legal armor is your legal documents and your contracts, right?
Yeah.
And so one thing you need to realize about it is if you have paying clients, you have a contract with them whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
Because all it takes to have a legal contract is that you offer some kind of program and they pay you for it. That's a binding legal contract. It's a very simple one. The only terms to it are this is the program and this is what it costs. So as long as you have a contract in place, whether you know it or not, people think contract and they think a big long document that they have to sign, but that's not what it means legally. A handshake deal is a legal contract.
Mm. Wow.
No, and verbal contracts in most places are just as binding as written contracts. The problem with the verbal contract is that because it's not written down, you have nothing to reference. So what if you have a disagreement, right? So if somebody calls you up, and they say, hey, I want an extra 10 sessions for you and I'll pay you an extra $2,000, and you say, okay, and that's it. Have a verbal contract to supply them with 10 sessions for $2,000. So let's say you get to the end of the 10 sessions and they want to come back for session number 11 and you say, hang on, no, you got your 10. And they say, what do you mean? You agreed to 15. And you're like, no, I remember, I said 10. And they're like, no, I remember, you said 15. Well, you have nothing written down, so who's right?
Yes.
And ultimately, because you're the one providing the service, that will get interpreted against you every time. So as long as you have a contract, whether it's verbal or whatever, you might as well have something written down with all the proper legal terms. And this is where I could go on forever, longer than we have here. But there are lots of terms you need to have in that contract, and then there are things you need to keep out. So in the law, we call it the four corners of the agreement. Make sure that within the four corners of the agreement are all the things necessary so that people don't have to look somewhere else to figure out what's in the contract. They can look in that contract and find everything they need without going to an external source. So once you've put everything you need in there, stop. The temptation for a lot of folks is to keep adding stuff in that doesn't need to be in there.
No. And I suppose a lot of that, sorry, Ian, I was going to say, so a lot of that could even just be a simple email. Like if you're talking to somebody and you say, okay, we want 10 sessions for $2,000, you could follow it up with an email. Hey, thank you. We just agreed to blah, blah, blah. At least then it's in writing. Would you agree?
Yeah, that would help for sure. You follow it up with an email that says, just to confirm today, I agreed to provide you an extra 10 sessions for $2,000. If you disagree or if that's not your recollection, please let me know right away.
Yeah.
So that's a way to document that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's a tip that people can do that's simple and keeps them a bit safer.
Yeah. And one thing to stress about contracts too is make sure it's in clear, simple language. Yeah. Your contract does not have to be in hyper complicated legalese. And in fact, it should not be in that. Yes. It needs to be in something your client can understand. If they understand it, if it's clear and simple and they know what's in there, then they know what they're getting into, then they're really getting into it voluntarily, then they are much less likely to dispute it later on because they understood what they were getting into. Absolutely. And even if they do dispute it, your contract is much more likely to be upheld and you're much more likely to win on the other side because you have something that's very clear that you can show that they can understand it. Judges do not like to see hyper complicated, super long technical language that's thrown at somebody who cannot understand it. No. That does not show that they really knew what they were getting into. No.
That's not showing kindness either, is it?
Exactly. Not showing kindness either. Yeah.
No. Yeah. No. Wow. So yeah. So wow. So are there any other layers, or are they the main ones, or?
Those are the main ones. I mean, I'm sure I could. There are. Some of the other ones. I think the other main one would be knowing the law, and this is where it comes into, not knowing just how to build the legal Cadillac, but how to drive it and the rules of the road. You need to understand the surrounding legal context that you live in. A good example would be if you're hiring people to help with your business. Are they contractors or are they employees? And you might think, well, they're contractors because I want them to be contractors. And my agreement with them says that they're a contractor. Except that if the labor law defines them as employees, then they're still an employee no matter what your contract with them says. Your contract cannot override the law. So if you want someone to be a contractor instead of an employee, you have to know the difference legally in the right location. And then you have to make sure that your relationship with them matches the law. Otherwise, your contract doesn't mean anything in how it defines it.
No.
So you have to understand the surrounding legal context.
Yes. Wow. Well, that's really exciting. So thank you. That is really cool. I mean, really what you're saying are things that everybody can do. Everybody can make sure that they're protected by having a company, like, and having that in place, and they can go and talk to somebody. They can talk to you about how to do all of that. And, insurance, especially for healers and coaches, in Australia, there's companies out there that specialize in insurance for people just like, people like us,
Same thing in North America. Yeah, there are lots of choices online. Just Google it and pick one. But, again, make sure you read the policy and know what it's really covering.
Yes. Yeah. So no, that's really cool. And like we said before, kindness is free. So that's really, really good. So just reiterating and legally making sure that you follow up and make sure that everybody agrees and there's no misinterpretation that can take place. So.
Yeah, no misinterpretation and no ambiguity. And when you write something out in a legal document, just write it clearly in your own words and just say what you mean. Yeah. Some of the worst contracts I've read are contracts that were written by non-lawyers, but they're trying to make it sound like what they think lawyers would say. And then it just comes out in gibberish when you didn't need to do that because you didn't even need the hyper-technical language in the first place. All you needed was something just clear in your own voice. Just say what you mean. Yes. Don't beat around.
That's great advice, honestly. That is so, because often if we look at legal, being a non-legal entity person, if I look at a legal document, sometimes I need someone to interpret it because you just have no idea. Like it's just,
right.
So what you said just makes so much sense. So thank you so much for coming on
absolutely.
Today. How can people contact you? Is there, what can they do? Maybe let us know, how can people contact you if they want more advice or want to find out more about you?
Yeah, so a couple of ways, and we can drop these in the comments too. So email is ian@legalempowermentcoaching.com. Yes. So Ian at legalempowermentcoaching.com if they want to shoot me an email. Then we can talk about, different ways I can help or if they need to schedule a consult or something. If they want to get on my list, you can download my free legal primer where it teaches you the essential legal things you need to know as a heart-centered entrepreneur. Yeah. So it's mostly geared towards coaches, healers, and transformational leaders, but there's a lot of stuff in there that's very useful for all kinds of entrepreneurs and small business owners. So for that, you go to legalempowermentcoaching.com. and you can register for the free download there. And so then you get a free resource right away that's full of action items that you can actually take care of and start working on yourself. And then it also gets you on my list so you can stay up to date with everything.
That's wonderful. So that'd be great. And if we can we'll pop the comments below, we will do that. And that would be great. Then people can contact you and find it out. And and Jacene just said, thank you. That was great advice. And Karen has said that kindness is free. So so that's really cool.
Definitely, I'm glad. You said, were there some questions that?
There was one question, but it was to do actually with music. So I'm not sure whether this is something to have online now or whether to have it later. But one of the ladies was talking to me yesterday. She runs workshops and she was running what are the legalities of using in an online course of playing a YouTube meditation. Is there a music? Is it legal to do that?
Well, it's not so much that it's like criminal or anything. It's more about anytime you use something that belongs to someone else, you want to get their permission to do it. So you'd have to see the meditation or the music or whatever it is you're using. You'd have to look and see if there's anything written in the terms of that. Like if someone might say in there, "Hey, this is my gift to the world. I want you all to enjoy it. Feel free to use it as you like." If they say something like that, then it's probably okay to use. If they don't say something like that, then you probably need the person's permission. Because if you made something creative and you worked hard on it, you wouldn't want other people going out and basically selling it and making money off of it without your permission. And if you're using it in a course that you're charging money for, that's basically what you're doing, is you're using somebody else's creative product that they worked hard on for commercial use for yourself. And it doesn't have to be even a commercial use. So I was advising a church one time, a church that's a nonprofit organization. It's basically a charitable organization. They're not making money or profit off of this. And at a function, they wanted to play some music that they did not have the right license to play. They did not have legal permission to play that music. Yes. And so they called me up and they said, "But it's okay, right? Because we're not making money off of this." And I said, that's got nothing to do with, that's a separate question from whether you have the right permission. Just because you're not charging for the event and making money, it doesn't mean you can go to the hardware store and steal lumber to build the stage for the event. It's not a defense at that point to say, "Hey, it's okay we stole the lumber because we're not making money off of this." No, you still stole the lumber. Yes. It's still stealing. Okay. It's the same thing with creative stuff. So whether or not you're charging for it, you need to get other people's permission to do it. Okay. Now, there are a lot of ways to do that. You could contract the person who made it. You can literally just write them an email. If you can find their contact information and say, "Hi, I love this piece. I would love to use it as part of my online course. Do I have your permission to do it?" They could say yes, they could say no. They could say yes if you pay me this amount of money. I mean, who knows what they might say. It's their creative product. They can do what they want with it. Other ways to get music and stuff for courses or events are to go to these online services where you buy a license to a large catalog. So you might pay a monthly subscription fee that's usually pretty affordable, and then there could be a list of like 100,000 songs you could choose from. And you could use that in your courses or events. So that's another way to do it legally, because then they make sure that the artists are compensated for their work.
Yes, yeah. That's great advice. So the point of this then is, if you find something on YouTube that you really love and you want to put it in your course, you should contact the person first and make sure that it's okay, or have a look at the wording that they've used and see if they say that it's okay. Basically. Yeah,
if they put something in there that says it's okay, it still wouldn't hurt to email them.
Yeah.
And ask, especially for a course you're charging for, but just always ask about that stuff. And sometimes people say to you, "Well, but what are the chances I'm going to get caught?" And I'm like, "Well, but you did it." Okay, so I could go to the grocery store and steal a pack of gum. And what are the chances I'm going to get caught? Probably pretty low. But I still stole something, and I just don't feel good about that. Yeah. Now, if you feel good about that, then, well, okay. But, most of the folks that we deal with are heart-centered, empathetic people and don't feel good about stealing other people's things. So I would not think of it in terms of what's the risk I'm going to get caught. Think how you would feel if somebody stole your stuff. What if somebody saw your course online and decided to download it and take clips and use it in their course? Okay, maybe you'll never catch them, but do you want people doing that? It just doesn't feel right to me. So just, if you're ever in doubt, any doubt at all, just go get permission. Yeah.
And isn't there too, there's that energy thing too, what you give out, you get back, that, so I'm not going to say any more about that. People know what I mean, but it's, So
no, I agree. It's an energetic exchange that we're in. So I agree. And that to me is not the kind of energy that I want coming back to me.
No, exactly. So, well, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to those that are listening. There's 3 people currently online. I can see right this minute, that are here. So I'm really excited, and thank you very, very much for joining us. Everybody and for those who are watching on the replay, please pop down replay below and share any comments, any questions that you might have. That would be awesome. Ian's going to pop down his details so that we have them so that you can contact him and download his awesome free gift that he can share with you. So I'd love you all now to have the most amazing and abundant day. Thank you so, so much, Ian, for coming here. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.